Oh, g'day mate, how's it going? You want shorter blood trails? You don't want to track your deer as long in the field? Yeah, no worries, stick around. I'll show you where to aim on a deer for your next bow hunt. So I was going through some videos from last year's whitetail season here in North Carolina, and I figured I'd put together a bit of a video for you guys to show 3 different scenarios, slightly different conditions, where I aimed to get those whitetail deer. Each situation was a little bit different, and there's 4 key things I take into consideration when I'm aiming. First one is shot angle, so if I'm at ground level or up in a tree stand. Next one is distance to animal. The next one is how alert the animal is. And the last one is any environmental conditions. And I'll dig into each of these as we go through these 3 deer that I took. Here's the first deer from last year, and this was in my own backyard. And let's think about those 4 elements a little. So the first one, shot angle. You can see here, I'm up in the stand and I'm waiting until she's broadside. So I'm shooting down. The distance is right on 20 yards to that feeder, and she's standing adjacent to the corn feeder there. The deer are a little bit skittish. If you watch this hunt, and I'll put the link up in the top corner there, you can see these 4 deer were on alert. And the last one is the environmental conditions. Now you can see there's not a lot of wind, but I do have a fair bit of sound cover going on. There's plenty of birds chirping, there's crickets and insects making noise. So I was able to draw back and be pretty quiet, and I was pretty comfortable knowing that any small movements that I made and little bits of noise, it was going to be covered. So I took all of that into consideration. And if I freeze frame it here, you can see that the arrow enters right in the crease. Now, given I'm shooting down from the stand, that arrow is exiting in the lower third on the other side, just behind that far leg. So it's coming right in and going out right where it needs to be. And with this bit of footage as I come up, this really gives you some good indication as to exactly where it went in. So we can see here, this is the entry side for that arrow, and it's right in the engine room. This was a double lung shot, and she ran about 60 yards from where I shot her, and I could see it from the stand. So this second deer sets up a little bit differently. On this one, she's quartering away, and again, I'm shooting down from up in a tree stand at about 20 yards. This one was right on about 19. Now, she was feeding, generally relaxed, but she was on alert. There's 3 deer that came in here, and you can actually see when I draw back, I'll put a little circle around this deer that's kind of hidden up in the corner. She spooked and she saw me, but she didn't run. So that third one that's not really in frame was watching me draw back, but she didn't alert the other 2. And if you have a look, it is dead still. There is no wind and it is super quiet. You may not be able to hear it, but in the original footage, you could actually hear the deer chewing on the corn. So the environmental conditions played a huge role in this shot placement. Because it was so still and quiet, and I could hear the corn being ground in her teeth, I knew this deer was going to jump as soon as that arrow left the string. If I slow this down and we go 5 frames in after I release the arrow, you can see the deer is already ducking and rolling. That's 1/6 of a second, or 166 milliseconds. That's just incredible. And you can see by the markers I put across the screen, after 12 frames or 400 milliseconds, she is completely below where her body height was when I released that arrow. That's less than half of a second. She is completely moved. So she probably ducked a little bit more than I was anticipating, but I aimed intentionally a bit lower on this deer. She ducked into this arrow a little bit, resulting in a perfect double lung shot. And I watched her expire about 20 yards from where I shot her. And you can see in the footage where the exit wound was, and it is a little high, and that's because she was ducking so quick. So had I been aiming a little higher on her body and not anticipating her to duck as much, I might have only caught the back lung and probably missed the front one. As soon as she heard my bow, she was ducking in this instance. So just be mindful that the environmental conditions with ambient sound can really play into where you need to aim. Now on this third deer, again, in a tree stand. This is pure broadside and at about 15 yards. And you can see this deer is quite alert. If you have a look at her ears, they're popped up and she's looking for where that sound's coming from. But also she had just walked downwind of where I was. It is dead quiet. There is no wind. So another situation where I have to think about the sound cover or lack thereof that I had. I put the 20 pin straight behind that front leg and about a third of the way up from the belly line, aiming for her heart. You can see in the video that she starts to duck just as the arrow gets to her. But more interestingly, if you watch her closest ear, it actually picks up the direction the arrow's coming, it turns towards it, and then she starts to duck. Man, these animals are just hypersensitive and just built to pick you up in the field. So again, being mindful, in this particular instance, she was on alert. Now, if I freeze frame, you can see the lighted knock right in the spot where I was aiming. And after I play it through, she kicks out the hind legs, indicative of a heart shot. So what's the takeaway here? If you think of those 4 things, you'll set yourself up to be calm, relaxed, and make a good shot. If you got something out of this video, like and subscribe. I appreciate it, helps me out. Go check out those hunts, I've got them linked up above, and we'll catch you on the next one.